Unless your name's made.
Put in here, these things are
We'll do an amendment.
if you find a situation with it.
All right, now look.
Get warrants.
This is us right here, right?
It's 9 o'clock on Wednesday, February the 12th. The House Criminal Justice Subcommittee is now in session. If everyone make sure they have logged in. We will take the roll. Mr. Clerk, take the roll. Thank you very much. Members, before we begin, is there any personal orders? Seeing none, I failed to make some introductions in our organizational meeting last week. An instrumental part of this committee is our staff. And so with us this year, our committee attorneys are Michelle Fogarty and Elizabeth Insomnia. Our research analyst, Mr. Ryan Baird. Committee assistant, Emily Hamby. We have an intern, Alexa Barnett. Our clerk, Mr. Nicholas Nicastro. And our legislative recorder, Elizabeth Edwards. And then the world famous Sergeant of Arms, Mr. Tyler Muniz, who will bring us our weekly words of wisdom.
Good morning, everybody. Great to see y'all again. Happy start of the session. Today's words of wisdom come from the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley. Ambition is like a V8 engine. Y'all have a great day.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to go through the calendar. We've had some changes this week. Item number 4, House Bill 34 by Representative Gillespie will be rolled 1 week. Item number 6, House Bill 78 by Representative Stevens, rolled 1 week. Item number 8, House Bill 221 by Representative Barrett is off notice. Item number 9, House Bill 222 by Representative Barrett is off notice. And item 13, House Bill 369 by Representative Scarborough is off notice. Which will bring us back to item number 1, and I will be handing the gavel off to Chairman Farmer.
All right. All right, I've got a motion and a second. We're looking at, we got item number 1, House Joint Resolution 48 by Chairman Doggett. You recognize, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, this is what we consider to be called as Marcy's Law. It is a constitutional amendment amending Constitutional Article 1, Section 35, Tennessee State Constitution. Many years of work in this. It passed the 113th General Assembly. It is required to pass again on the 114th. But what we are doing here, this is many years of work, but we are in our current Constitution, we have a Victims' Bill of Rights. And what we seek to do here is to expand upon those rights, to give victims more opportunities to be heard, to participate in the criminal justice area, in that arena. And think that this is a very huge step for victims in this state. And so with that, I stand ready for any questions.
Very good. Thank you for that explanation. I have Leader Lambert. You recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Chairman, thank you for carrying this. Just a shout out to former Chairman Patsy Hazelwood, who carried this for years. She worked valiantly on this and was a passionate advocate for those survivors of violent crime and of all crime throughout this state. And Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you for picking the mantle up here and running with it. And hopefully we'll get this done this year and get it on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's good. Members, anyone else on the list? Anyone else like to speak? Any questions before we vote? Seeing none, any objection to the question? All right. Madam Clerk, let's take the vote. All right, looks like 9 yeses, 0 nos. Bill passes on to Judiciary Full Committee. Next bill.
Thank you. All right, we're on to item number 2. Item number 2, House Joint Resolution 49, and be presented by Representative Capley. We have a motion and a second. You are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members. HJR 49's purpose is to keep violent criminals behind bars and off our streets. I think we can all agree that the system that we have now is not working. Expanding the option for a judge to deny bail for violent offenders helps ensure the safety of our general public by keeping individuals charged with violent crimes in custody. By doing so, this will reduce the risk of them posing a threat to their victims and others in the community. With that, Mr. Chairman, I will stand ready for questions.
Thank you for that explanation. Members, do we have any questions for the sponsor? We do have some that are on the list to testify if needed. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. If there's no questions, any objection to the question? Seeing none, we will now be voting to send House Joint Resolution 49 onto full judiciary. Let's take the vote. Does anyone wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, take the vote, please.
Mr. Chairman, you have 7 ayes and 2 nays.
7 ayes, 2 noes. The bill passes on to full judiciary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair Committee.
The resolution. Chairman Halsey in here. Well, if he's not in here, we're just going to rock on. All right, item number 3, House Bill 72 by Chairman Howell. You are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill came to me from educators in my district, and superintendents talked to me about this. You may recall, it's been in recent history, the General Assembly passed a bill making the selling of hemp-derived cannabinoid gummies a Class A felony, 1129, and it was all at the judge's discretion. Since that time, the educators tell me that the number of children in elementary through 12, the number of students gaining access to these cannabinoid gummies has skyrocketed. And just as late as last night, I was told by one of my superintendents of a young child who gained access to it in some way and OD'd on it. Fortunately, did not take its life, but and also in recent history, a 17-year-old student in East Tennessee did OD, taken to ICU. Fortunately, he did survive. But the educators are asking us to set a minimum penalty. This bill keeps the Class A misdemeanor, but it sets a minimum penalty of 48 hours in jail. If you sell these cannabinoid gummies to anyone under 21 years of age, it sets a mandatory 48 hours in jail and a minimum of a $500 fine, leaves the rest still at the judge's discretion. And I would ask this committee's passage so that we can continue to protect our children.
Thank you for that explanation. First question on the list is Representative Powell.
Thank you. Question of the sponsor. Could you explain when someone, I agree with what you're trying to do. My concern here is sometimes you have people that are working in these stores. They don't own the store. They might inadvertently sell this to someone who then gives it to that child. And, I would hate to see someone face these kinds of 48-hour consequences when they were simply working in a store. Granted, they might be trying to follow the law, but for whatever reason, that person purchased it. So who is the actual person that would be spending the 48 hours in jail? Is it the store owner or would it be the clerk just working at the store?
The way the bill is written, anyone who sells it to anyone under 21 years of age would be responsible for that crime.
And while I appreciate the attempt and what you're trying to do here, I do have a concern with us continuing to punish. I think it should be the owner of the store, and the impetus should be on them, because you might have somebody who unintentionally is working at that store, might have sold it, and they're facing a 48-hour consequence. Yet the owner of that store, who I think should be the person that's held liable for that.
Thank you for that. My response would be, if I own a business, it's my responsibility to train my employees, tell them what is legal, what is not legal. And if that employee chooses to break the law, they should suffer the consequences. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Leader Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And with all due respect, my friend from Davidson County, the individual who fails to check ID, I mean, this is just like selling alcohol to a minor or anything else, but especially with these type of products, it's very similar to selling alcohol to a minor. And I can tell you, several years ago in Sumner County, our local sheriff's department worked with some of the local groups and did some stings on convenience stores that were, selling alcohol to minors, and on restaurants that they thought might. And about half of those stores actually didn't even bother to check ID. They didn't even ask for it. And so those folks went to jail. They went to jail for 48 hours. That's what the judge did. And it wasn't in the statute at that time, but our local judge decided to take that seriously. And for years after that, when they did those stings, there would be virtually no one that didn't check an ID. I mean, this makes an effect and an impact, and it has a deterrent effect of just making sure that people check ID. And to me, that's a reasonable thing to ask of a clerk. And if they're going to sell a potentially dangerous substance and an intoxicating substance to a minor, then they deserve to go to jail for 48 hours. So thank you for bringing the bill.
Thank you.
Representative Salinas.
Hi. Sometimes bills that we sponsor have, or that we pass have unintended consequences. I don't know if you know that Tennessee has the largest number of pediatric cancer patients. So if a parent would try to acquire something like a cannabinoid for their child, would they be liable to these same consequences?
The bill simply addresses the selling of the cannabinoid gummies to those under 21 years of age. It doesn't address the issue that you raised.
An 18-year-old cancer patient would fall under that.
If someone sells to someone under 21 years of age, they would suffer the consequences.
Okay.
Representative Scarborough.
Go along with Leader Lambert's explanation. Sometimes with just a mere naming of something like this, a gummy, creates the idea that this is less harmful than other intoxicants. And to go along with Representative Salinas, why I understand what she's saying, that it would address the selling of someone under the age of 21. In her scenario, I would imagine it wouldn't be an issue. Yeah, it'd be between the parent and the patient.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for those comments. Maybe in the future we can address how these things are packaged or how they look, but our children think these are candy, and it's far from candy. My superintendent told me last night that they even sell these packaged gummies now in a package that looks just like Skittles. You can't tell the difference. If a child picks that up, they think it's Skittles. And somewhere on the package, it says hemp-derived cannabinoid, but the children just see the packaging. So we probably in the future might need to address that aspect, but for now, we need to try to protect our children, to keep them out of the hands of children under 21.
Thank you. Representative Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I agree with my colleague here. I do, and look, I think these are horrible. The situation that happened with someone with a young child taking this and almost overdosing. I know this is a major issue. Agree with that 100%. I just think we should also hold the business owner accountable. While they do have control over their employees, they should also be held accountable because it's simply a clerk who's working a job. Just because they failed, also the owner of that business, in my opinion, failed and should be held to the same standard. For that reason, I have an issue with the bill, but that's philosophical. But I appreciate what you're trying to do.
Any other questions for the sponsor? Chairman Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to thank the sponsor for bringing this to us. I think that it's a responsible piece of legislation to keep these cannabinoids out of the children's hands. I think as far as holding the business owners responsible, it'd be sort of like writing a business owner for a pizza driver, getting a speeding ticket for the owner of the pizza company paying it. So, thank you.
Any other questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, any objection to voting to send House Bill 72 on the full judiciary? Seeing none, let's take the vote. Does anyone wish to change their vote? All right, Mr. Clerk, take the vote, please.
Mr. Chairman, you have 7 ayes, 2 nays.
All right, the ayes prevail. House Bill 72 moves on to full judiciary.
Thank you, Chairman.
Next item on our calendar, House Bill 76 by Representative Stevens. You are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill came to me from Rutherford County's PAWS, which is Pet Adoption and Welfare Services. It modifies an existing crime, which is abandonment of animals. We're not creating anything new here. It just takes the word unreasonably out of this. Right now, it's illegal to abandon unreasonably your animal. And the problem with this is when animal welfare agencies or police find out who abandons an animal, they go to the magistrate, and the magistrate says, we don't know what is unreasonable. And there's no explanation of that in the statute. So we're deleting that. And we're also proposing to add that just because you abandon your animal at a vet office or an animal control center, that doesn't excuse you from your behavior.
Well, very good. Thank you for that explanation. Any questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, I do have one question. This bill, this caption, if there's any amendments made to this going forward, would you be willing to bring that back to us to let us examine those amendments?
Yes, and I don't have any intention to put any amendments on the bill anyway.
Perfect. Thank you. Yes, sir. Chairman Farmer.
I just want to make it clear that this bill does not include livestock, cows, horses. I mean, we're talking about cats, dogs, domesticated companions. Is that your intent, or is that what this bill?
That's my understanding. Like I said, this is already in the code.
Okay.
It already defines these terms. We're just saying that we're deleting the word unreasonably.
Okay. All right, fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for the sponsor? Any objection to voting? Seeing none, let's take the vote. Does anyone wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, take the vote, please.
Mr. Chairman, you have 8 ayes.
Thank you very much. The ayes prevail. House Bill 76 will move on to full judiciary.
Thank you.
Item number 7, House Bill 96 by the Vice Chair of Judiciary, Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I
We have a
appreciate it. Thank
motion.
you,
Do we have
committee.
a second? Yes, we are in proper form. You may
All right.
proceed.
Thank you. I appreciate that. This piece of legislation is brought by our illustrious Attorney General's office. Last year, prior to 2023, the Tennessee Attorney General and the reporter, they had the authority to conduct investigations and initiate criminal prosecutions of any judge, chancellor, judicial elected official, and or district attorney when the prosecution posed a conflict of interest for that local attorney, district attorney general. And so in such a scenario, the attorney general had the power to investigate those officials for a violation of any state criminal law. And that's TCA 86112 subsection A. And so last year in 2023, we passed House Bill 611, Senate Bill 103, and that bill added language to that TCA authorizing the Attorney General to investigate prosecutions to include nepotism. So this bill kind of cleans up some of the language with regard to that when we added that language in. So in subsection A of this current bill, we're changing some of the language and adding or both. And then also under section 1, we're adding the word and then in section 2, we're changing it from and to or. And so with that, I stand ready for any questions and would appreciate passage.
Thank you for that explanation. Members, are there any questions for the sponsor, Representative Powell?
I appreciate the sponsor coming to talk to me about this. I might get with you afterwards because I did have a couple questions, but I'll vote favorably today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none, we're now going to be voting to send House Bill 96 on the full judiciary. Let's take our vote. Does any member wish to change their vote? All right, Mr. Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 9 ayes.
Thank you very much. The ayes prevail. House Bill 96 will move on to full judiciary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee.
Let's jump to item number 11 on our calendar. Item number 11, House Bill 120, which will be ran by Mr. Chairman Bud Hulsey. That's you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You are recognized.
I just want to state that I miss this committee.
We miss you.
I even miss Representative Powell being on a committee with him too. So. This bill is pretty simple. We have a protective service group that works out of public safety that's responsible for protecting people. And for example, this bill says if the protective agency is with the governor and somebody tries to block them from egress or ingress in or out of some place, or they refuse to leave a particular area that they're needing to be in, it makes it a Class A misdemeanor. And if they do so in a threatening manner or beyond that, it can be a Class E felony. And under the old days, you probably would have arrested somebody for failure to obey a lawful order was what we used it. But then you got to argue in court what a lawful order was. So this cleans all that up and fixes it. And that's what the bill does.
Thank you for that explanation. We do have testimony today. So without objection, we're going to go out of session. We're going to hear from the Department of Safety, Ms. Elizabeth Stroker and Colonel Matt Perry. If you both will introduce yourselves for the record, and you will have 3 minutes each for testimony.
There we go. Elizabeth Stroker, Legislative Director for the Department of Safety, and I've got Colonel Matt Perry of the Highway Patrol with me. We won't even take 3 minutes. Chairman Hulsey did a great job explaining what the bill does, and this was brought to us based on some things that have happened in other states, and we want to make sure that we can keep the people the Highway Patrol is protecting safe, and so we'll answer any questions if needed.
Thank you for that. Any questions for our guest, Representative Powell?
Okay, now let me. I was going to say it's too early in the year to you cut me off already, Mr. Chairman. But my only question is, has this been an issue already in the state, or have we run into this? Has there been any instances where this might have arisen?
I want to make sure you say I can speak. There have been situations both in this state and others. We're really trying to model it after what we've seen in other states in relation to potential assassination attempts or threats against, other governors, other dignitaries that are throughout the country. And so we really want to make sure that we've got something in place in case someone tries and enters that restricted area and tries to make a threatening act on someone the Highway Patrol is protecting.
One follow-up question. Is it clear, would it be clear to the person that that is actually the protective detail? My only concern is you might arise a situation where somebody says, I need you to move, and people don't recognize the fact that it might be like a protective detail or a trooper, and they could be held liable for this, and they just realized I didn't know who that was.
Colonel Matt Perry, Tennessee Highway Patrol. That's a great question. We will absolutely identify ourselves and why we, the whole point is just to keep a safe kind of protective bubble, going where we're going, certainly when we're in crowds of troopers or executive protection troopers and crowds of people, so they can make a pathway to get through. They'll ask them to move. Someone will say, well, I don't have to move for you, then we'll identify ourselves as Tennessee Highway Patrol and then ask them.
One last question here in all seriousness. Sometimes I know there's detail given to football coaches or athletic officials. I've seen it where they're present. If there was, say, crowd stormed the field and big win over Alabama, say, at a UT football game, could this somehow be in effect, or is this simply for elected officials?
This is simply for elected officials.
Any other questions for our guests? Chairman Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to be clear, this is sort of similar to what the Secret Service is doing.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions for our guest? I do have one. What with this is different than what is already the process or procedure, if any?
Well, to Chairman Halsey's, comments, and we'd have to charge them with failure to bail off order or something to that effect. This just gives us a specific TCA.
Clarification, really?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Perfect. Thank you. Yes, sir. Chairman Farmer.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to understand the scope of this. So if there's ever a situation with any elected official, whether it be any member of this committee that was under threat and the Highway Patrol was assigned to protect, it would include any elected official. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That is. And anybody our executive protection troopers are assigned to protect.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for being here. We're going back into session. Any questions for the sponsor? Chairman Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the sponsor, back in the late 70s, early 80s, there was a TV show called Benson. Is that where you got this idea?
I was only 8 years old back in the 70s.
Good answer. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none, we're now going to be voting to send House Bill 120 on the full judiciary. All right. Any members wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 7 ayes, 1 nay, 1 present not voting.
All right. The ayes prevail. House Bill 120 moves on to full judiciary.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee.
Item number 12. House Bill 191 by Leader Lamberth. All right. You recognize there's an amendment code 3410. You wish to proceed with that amendment?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
You are recognized on the amendment.
Mr. Chairman, just this included just a slight clerical change in the original bill.
All right. Any questions on the amendment? Any questions been called on the amendment? Any objections? Seeing none, we're voting to attach amendment code 3410 on the House Bill 191. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes prevail. We adopt. We're on House Bill 191 as amended. Leader Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And it's a very simple bill. This came to me from actually a member of law enforcement. It is a significant issue that we have folks that have pretty high-powered laser beams that they will point in the eyes of aircraft that are landed in airports. They do this at law enforcement officers as they're driving down the road. They do this from overpasses on passenger vehicles. There's a few laws on the books already that deal with very specific circumstances, but there's just no time when anybody should be shining a laser beam into someone's eyes that's operating a motor vehicle. And the way it's worded here, under the amendment, automobile, boat, aircraft, or other motor vehicle. It's just a very dangerous situation. So it makes it a B misdemeanor, which is a high level ticket for most folks, could carry up to 6 months in jail, but extraordinarily unlikely that somebody would face that penalty, especially on a first offense. And I stand ready for questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for that explanation. Any questions for our sponsor, Representative Powell?
Just one question. Leader. Love the bill. A huge problem. Would airplanes apply to this as well?
The word airplane was changed to aircraft because it should cover airplanes and helicopters, any type of aircraft instead of just airplane.
Okay, thank you. I have I've heard a lot of pilots that have had this issue. It's really significant. You think about all the lives that are on that plane. That's to me one of the most egregious things that anyone could possibly do. Thank you.
Any other questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none, we're now going to vote to send House Bill 191 on the full judiciary. Does anyone wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, take the vote. Thank you very much. The ayes prevail. House Bill 191 will move on to full judiciary. Brings us back to item number 10. Let's see, House Bill 184 by Representative Hardaway. I do see
Second.
All right, there's been a motion to roll it to the next calendar since the sponsor's not here. It was seconded. So without objection, we will roll House Bill 184, Representative Hardaway, to next week's calendar. That brings us to the conclusion of today's calendar. Members, is there anything that we need to address prior to leaving? Seeing none, we will be adjourned.